Hello everyone and welcome to the fifth and hopefully the final part of this tutorial series. And in this one we're talking about the RxDart package. So the RxDart package is simply a package based on the ReactiveX programming paradigm. And what this ReactiveX programming paradigm simply is just a set of rules, nomenclature and guideline to code reactive applications. So this is just a guideline where in which the RxDart library implements. So ReactiveX is very similar to the Dart streams which we've covered in previous videos in this tutorial, and it shares a very common similarity which this should demystify it up to a bit. So for the RxDart or in your ReactiveX, ReactiveX stands for reactive extensions. So in RxDart, a stream controller is a subject, a stream is an observable, a subscriber is an observer, and stream transformers are operators. So in RxDart, the subject class extends the stream controller class. So what that simply means is that this subject class is just an extension of stream controller class with additional features. The same thing with an observable. So in RxDart, you call a stream an observable, and it also extends the stream class. So what this simply means is that the observable has access to properties and methods like map, where, take, contains, and all, like we've covered in previous videos. So this video is going to just focus on the RxDart library. And to do this, I have a very simple example that's just going to show us the basics of this package. So firstly, the first thing you have to do would be to add this package in your pubspec.yaml file RxDart, and this is just a very simple workflow of what you're going to be doing. So you can create observables from stream controllers, just like I mentioned in this stuff over here. Stream controllers are subjects, observables are streams. So at the very core, you can actually create an observable from a stream controller over here. So you can see the observable constructor takes in controller.stream, and this should also work. And the thing I made mention of this. I said an observable extends a stream, and you can see it over here. An observable extends a stream. So that means, according to like the object-oriented programming paradigm, an observable is a stream, but just with additional features over here. So we have the observable here, and you can see the observable has access to this listen method. So this should be very trivial for you guys if you've been following this series. So this is just one way to actually do this, but we won't be doing this way in this tutorial. So the main thing I'm going to be talking about in this tutorial would be subjects. So we have different subjects in the RxDart package, and like I told you, the RxDart package just extends. It's just an implementation of the ReactiveX programming paradigm. So for a published subject, it's just a stream controller, but with an additional twist, which you'd notice from this code, which I'm going to be explaining very shortly. So you can see over here, everything is pretty much the same. But the thing to notice about this is you can see you don't have to necessarily call subject.sync.add. So the published subject object directly has, you have the add method directly, so you don't necessarily have to use the sync. And the same thing for the stream, which I'll also show you as we progress. So if we execute this is what is going to happen here. So the first subscription is going to print out values 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the first subscription over here. This line over here is the first subscription. Then the second subscription is going to print out 3 and 4. So how the published subject simply works is that whenever a new subscriber subscribes to the stream, the subscriber gets the next value being sunk inside the stream. That is why sub 2 over here prints only 3 and 4. And I ran the code already, which I'm going to be showing as we progress, but I just want to explain it orally first of all. And you can see we also have to close this. But now you might be asking, okay, what's the difference between a publish subject or a subject generally and the stream controller? If you notice over here, we have two subscriptions. We have the first subscription and we have the second subscription over here. Unlike the stream controller, which is a single subscription stream by default, publish subjects, behavior subjects, and replay subjects are broadcast streams by default. So you can see that is why we have multiple subscriptions. So that's just one major difference with the subject and the stream controller. I don't know if the core subject is also, I don't know if the core because publish subject also extends the subject base class, but I don't know if that one is also a broadcast subscription, a broadcast stream by default. You'd have to check that, but that's just the simple difference. Then we also have something called the behavior subject. So now the difference between we also have something called the behavior subject. And if you look at this code over here, we have the first subscription and the second subscription. But the difference lies here. Subscription 1 prints out 1, 2, 3, 4, while subscription 2 prints out 2, 3, 4. So how behavior subject simply works is that whenever a new subscriber comes into, or whenever a new subscriber subscribes to the stream, the subscriber gets the current value that is currently inside the stream. So you have 1, you have 2. Then when the subscription is being executed over here, the current value in the stream is 2. That is why this second subscription prints out 2, 3, 4. And we can also do something called seeding. So a behavior subject can have an initial value. A published subject cannot have an initial value. So I would also show all these things I'm explaining in the movie search app, where you'd see how everything comes into place. But I just have to do this for you guys to just have the theoretical understanding of what I am doing. So like I just explained, the second subscription has 2, 3, 4. But if you seed, this seeded is a constructor of the behavior subject class. So if you seed this stuff with an initial value of 10, what's going to happen? The first subscription is going to print out 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it over here. And the second subscription is going to print out 2, 3, 4. Now you might ask, why is it not printing out 10, 10, 2, 3, 4? And the reason is simple. Like I told you, whenever a new subscription comes in, it gets the current value from the stream. And now currently the value from the stream is currently 2. So that is why it prints out 2, 3, 4. Everything I'm explaining is going to be done in the practicals in our application. Then the final one is the replay subject. And towards the end of the video, or during the course of this video, I'm going to be explaining the places where you would use a publish subject, a behavior subject, and a replay subject. Although the replay subject is not really common, but that's just what I'm going to do. So now for the replay subject is very, very straightforward. Whenever a new subscriber comes, it just prints out, it collects the initial value that was added from in the stream. So you can see subscription 1 prints out 1, 2, 3, 4, while subscription 2 prints out 1, 2, 3, 4. So when the second subscription connects to the stream, it goes and gets the very initial value. So if I come to this, you'd see everything I've been talking about. So from the first example, you can see it just prints, I just add hello into the stream, and you can see it prints out hello. The published subject, same thing. The subscription 1 prints out 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see it over here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Subscription 2 prints out only 3 and 4, because that's when it's joined, it's subscribed to the stream. The same thing for the behavior subject over here. The first subscription prints out everything. The second subscription prints out 2, 3, 4. You can see it over here. 2, 3, 4. and the order in which they receive this stuff it's not kind of like ordered. Then as for the replace subjects, you can see both subscription prints out 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's just the basic building blocks of the RxDart package. And the next thing I'm going to be showing you would be how to actually implement it in our application. And I think the Diagrammatic has a very good diagram to explain everything I just talked about. And yeah, this is it from the Diagrammatic. I don't know how to pronounce his name. From his tutorial, you can see he got it from this side, but this side the links are broken to those images, so I had to just open it here. So you can see the first subscriber here takes in the first value, second value, third value. Then when the second subscriber, this arrow is a subscriber. When the second subscriber comes, he just takes the next value. He doesn't have access to the previous value. Then for the behavior subject, which I just made mention, when the new subscriber comes, it takes in the current value that is being added into the stream. That is why you have the green and the blue over here. Then for the replace subjects, the replace subject takes in every single stream, every single value that was sunk into the stream. That is why you see it over here. So this is just a diagrammatic representation of what I'll be doing in this tutorial. So that's just it. And one more thing, I could also come here and you can see, okay, so you can see, like I made mention of, the subject implements the stream controller class, so it overrides most of all the whole methods. You can see it overrides sync, on listen, and every other method. So that is just how this stuff works. Yeah, so back to the tutorial. For this stuff, I'm going to be implementing it in a movie search app. I'll leave you guys to implement the other to replicate what we did in the friend list app. So the first things first, I'm going to be replacing the movie controller with the publish subject. Come on, be fast. I don't want to manually type the import statement. Are you kidding me? Okay, I think. So I have to import Rx. I don't even know the extension. This is the beauty of IntelliSense. You don't have to have all this stuff in your head. But my IDE is slow. Come on. Okay, let me see the actual imports. Why are you slow? I know, you see, it's going to work. Okay, so we have the publish subject over here, and the method publish subject isn't defined for the class. Okay, so the same thing would make use of the publish subject first of all. So everything should work. Everything should work because I told you that this publish subject implements the stream controller class, so it's going to be having the same functionality. And I told you it returns what the stream inside it is, what an observable instead of a stream. If you leave it as a stream, it will also work because a stream, an observable is a stream. So that means if it returns an observable, it means that the type would also is implicitly also a stream. So I'll save this and we'll see. As the tutorial progresses, we'll be talking about some methods that comes with the RxDart package. So I'm going to quickly do a search here. And you can see everything still works like it did before. So we are no longer using the stream controller, and I believe our IDE should be complaining about that async. You can see it's complaining about that.async, but I'll just leave it that way. So you can see that's what the publish subject does. So this is just like your base stream controller, no additional feature. So one thing to note is that the subject over here, I could rename it to subject instead of controller, but I'm not going to be doing that renaming stuff in this video. You can have direct access to the stream from the subject itself. So if I remove the stream property, the published subject returns a stream by default. So this should also still work. So that's just the basics of this. And we can also use behavior subject and replace subject, but I won't be doing it here. Okay, I could actually do it here. So for the query controller, I could use a behavior subject. So I'll show you how that stuff works. Behavior subject, and I'll just do a hot restart. So I'll search one more time for the movie called Taxi. And you can see everything works. Everything works. But there's something I'm going to show you. I'm going to be doing something differently to show you how RxDart adds additional features for you. So first things first, I think we'll encounter an error when I click the back button. Okay, no error. Let me see. Okay, disposing movie search block. No error yet. We'll still encounter that error as we progress. So you can see the reason why I'm disposing this is from the generic block provider. So the next thing I'm going to be doing would be to make use of the seeded constructor. So I'm going to be doing .seeded, and the value I want to pass in is, because the behavior subject has access, gives you the ability to add a default value. So default value I'm going to be adding would be Bandidas. So Bandidas is just the name of a movie. So by default, the query controller would have an initial item being sunk into the stream, which is this string called Bandidas. So whenever I subscribe to this stream, whenever I click on this particular page, this movie search page, I'm creating a subscription to the stream via the stream builder, if you followed the previous video. So this seeded value is just going to have an initial value. So whenever I click on movie search, the query controller would have an initial string, an initial value of Bandidas. So you can see some of the little benefits of this RxDart package. And you can, ooh la la, Salma Hayek. So you can see some of the benefits of this stuff. So published subject does not have access to this constructor. You could only achieve this with the behavior subject. And I won't use the replace subject because it's rarely used, although I'd give you scenarios towards the end of this video on where you could actually make use of the behavior subject. So that's just how this stuff works. And you just have to play around with the documentation and tutorials to get more understanding of this. So if I come back and I go back to movie search, it seeds it with the initial value. So you might be building up an application whereby probably that displays movies or something. So whenever you load a page, you should just display the latest movie that was just released or something before the user types something. You just have to be creative and know, based on your requirements, where you could be using something like this. So now the other things I want to do would be to make use of the additional methods that comes with the RxDart package. So I talked about operators. In the ReactiveX environment, we call all these transformers operators. And the reason why I'm using operators here is because this ReactiveX paradigm, it has different implementation in different programming languages. So if I come over here, you can see languages. You have RxJava, RxJavaScript, RX.NET. The first reactive extension was created by a Microsoft engineer. So it was first implemented in the .NET framework. So you can see different language implementation. So this ReactiveX is just a guide of how you should implement reactive programming. So operators here are just, I could go to the end. Oops. So operators are just functions or methods that you could use to manipulate your streams. So you could actually use these operators to create streams. You could use it to filter streams. You could use them to. So these are different operators, but this is just the generic documentation. So you can create for creating observables, transforming. But in the DATS ecosystem we are familiar with the stuff called transformers. So just to show you, although I ought to have done that in this stuff, you can actually do this stuff we've been doing. So I could say where value is even. Yeah. So if I run this, I'm not going to run it. You can see this whole stuff also applies for the RxDart package. You can actually chain multiple transformers. So you can see now this is the filter. So where value is even, it will create a new stream that would print out only 2 and 4. So we could also apply the same knowledge for our movie search app. But to do that, let me remove this stuff. I know it would be distracting a lot of you guys, so I'll seed it with something like Inception. Okay, so I would be doing some transformations here, and let me think. Okay, so I could actually do something here. So I'll comment. In the ReactiveX, there's something called pipes. So pipes are just used to connect multiple streams together. So query.stream. I told you previously that you don't necessarily need this stream. You could actually access it directly because the subject returns the stream. So I could say transform. What's the transformation? Oops. What am I doing? Let me think. So query controller dots. I want to be able to, because currently what we have here is whenever the query controller, whenever you sync something into the query controller, it should do what's called the fetch movie API. But currently I don't want to do it this way. The stuff I want to do is I'm going to be creating a stream transformer. So what I want to do is whenever I get this, whenever a new value is being sunk into the query controller, I'm going to convert it into a movie and automatically add it to the movie controller. So I'm just going to show you how we're going to be doing operator chaining for when we use the RxDart package. So I'm going to say query to movie. Does it make sense? Okay. So query to movie, I'm going to be making use of the word stream transformer. And this, you should be familiar with this if you've watched the previous video. And I'm going to be using the handle is it handle data? Let me confirm. Okay, handle data, which is going to take in two types, which the first one is what the value, and the second one is the sync functionality, because a transformer takes in a stream and does some manipulation and spits out a new stream. So you have to have access to this sync property over here, and we use generics. So what does it take in? It takes in the query, and the query is of type what? String. So the first one will be string, and the second one would be what? Movie. So I want to take in a string, which is the query, and output a movie. So for this, I'm going to be I'm going to use this. I'm going to copy this, and it's going to complain about static movie repo. Okay, first of all, I'll make this an asynchronous function, and I'll say, okay, let me use query. Query, then I'll make movie repo static. Okay, so now what I want to do is, when I get this movie, I want to now do sync dot add. What do I want to add? I want to add the movie. Okay. Okay, so now what this transformer is going to just simply do, it's going to take in a string, which is the query, and I'm going to pipe it. I'm going to chain it over here in a short while. So it's going to take in that string, which is the query, and it performs some external API requests. Then when the request is completed with a movie, when the request is completed in the future, this movie variable, I should do what? Sync it into the new stream. So the next thing I'll be doing would be to use the transform property. I'll be removing this listen, because you'd see a different way would be able to achieve this. So transform, what do I want to? What's the transformer? Transform query. Query to what? Query to movie. Then the next thing I want to do is to make use of a pipe. So I explain what a pipe does. So the pipe I want to connect to would be movie controller. Movie controller. So I'm going to explain what this does shortly. Let me just do a hot restart to make sure that we are doing everything correctly. Okay, so I'll come to movie search, and the seeded value should be inception. So it searches for inception and it retrieves it. But now, oh, you see, everything even worked. Okay, but let me just do a search. For this stuff to show, it means that this line actually worked, because remember, this is the constructor. The query controller is listening for inputs. So let me just do a quick search. Then I'll explain. I was expecting the 2019 Joker. Okay, so what this actually does is, we're making use of a method of what, if you can see here, RxDart observable. It's a method of the observable class. So this is one of the RxDart features. So what the pipe does is that pipes the events of this stream into the consumer, but I'll take it step by step. So firstly, we have the query controller. Then we transform whatever we receive from the query controller, and you can see it here. So what do we receive? We receive this string over here, the joker. So we take that string and we pass it into this callback. No, we take that string and we pass it into this transformer. It's not a function here. I did not assign it in a function. So we take it and we call it inside this transformer. So that string is going to come into this code block. Just act like you did not see this stuff, please. So that string is going to come into this code block, and it's going to come in as what? The first argument of the handle data property. So it's going to be coming in as the query. So we take that query, we hit our API, and the result of the API is movie. Then we do what? We sync it into the new stream. Remember what stream transformer does? It takes a stream, does some manipulation, and spits out a new stream. So over here, this sync.add, we are adding the movie into the new stream. So now this guy is going to be coming to this pipe, and what the pipe simply does is that the pipe takes in whichever stream you are passing into it, and it passes it to the consumer. So now this movie over here, this movie data, this movie stream we are returning, the pipe is going to do what? Pass it to the consumer. So this movie controller is going to consume the movie we are sending. So you can see over here in this line, there was no need to call the listen method. With RxDart, we just have a very short, I don't know, I don't know if this is short, but this is just another way to actually achieve this. You don't have to call the listen. So whatever you receive from the stream, you're going to just pipe it, channel it like a pipe, channel it into the consumer, and the consumer over here is the movie controller. So as soon as the movie controller receives the movie, what should happen? The application should react and update the UI accordingly. So that is the workflow of this. And one other thing I'm going to add would be distance. So I want you guys to watch what happens now. So I head over to my debug console and just watch what happens. If I come over here and I click the Joker once more. Did I do a console.log? Okay, let me go do that quickly. I'll go to my okay, I could do it in the block, right? I could do it in my block. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do print if there's a movie dot what am I doing? Title. So I want to just show you guys one other thing we could actually, one other benefit we could actually get from RxDart. So I'm going to come back here and I'll do a search. I should see the Joker over here. Do I have to do a hot restart? That'll be weird, but let me just do that. Okay, so I think later on I'm going to remove this seeded value because of there's no need for that right now. Okay, so you can see it prints out inception, right? So I'm going to do one thing right now. So let me just search for mid summer. Okay, so I want you guys to watch here. So if I do the same search once more, I click on it, it prints out midsummer. That means it hits the API once more. So now to prevent this, there's another method we could actually add called distant. And from the name, DIST, come on, auto formats. Distinct, okay. So from the name, what it simply does is that if the previous value in the stream is equal to the next value you want to add to the stream, it is going to what? Ignore that syncing action. So what that means is if you look over here, if I click, let me search for another film, Ant-Man. So if I search for Ant-Man, just watch. So we have Ant-Man over here. Then if I go back and I click on Ant-Man once more, with the help of this distinct operator, it would ignore the next syncing. Oops, it did not. So why? It should ignore it. So Antman, am I missing something? Because that's the work of this distinct operator. Query controller, that'll be weird if I have to manually add. It will be so weird for me if I have to manually add the stream, but let's see. But normally what this stuff does, that it's if the previous value and the new value in the stream are the same, I should also remove this. Let me just sort. So you should see cars come up here. You see cars. So if I click it again, cool, it works now. Wow. Okay, but would it be because of the hyphen, or because I have to call stream on it? Because I told you guys earlier on that the publish subject returns the stream, or it has access to the stream directly. I don't want to remove this stuff and try it, so I'll leave you guys to actually try it out. So what I want you guys to do would be to remove this stream property here and call distinct on it, but make sure you do a hot restart. But you can see that's what the distinct operator simply does. You can see if I come and click on this again, it just does an equality check. Is the current value you're passing the same thing as the previous value? If it's the same thing, ignore the sync action. So that's just the basic workflow, and you can see we're doing everything with the RxDart package. So am I missing any other thing? No, I'm not. I'm not missing any other thing. Okay, let me do something quickly. So if I come here and hit the back button, let me open up the debug console. If I hit the back button, can you see? This is the error I've been waiting for. So you can see now, bad states. You cannot close the subject while items are being added from add stream. So with the way we configured this, I don't know if it works. I think it also shows the same error if you do it this way. So you can see here, you cannot close the subject while items are still being added from add stream. So you can see here, this pipe currently adds the item to the consumer over here. So if you are disposing your block, and you can remember from the previous video, we are actually disposing this block from where? The block provider, using the inherited widget and the stateful class. So if you encounter this type of errors, the simple method you can use to actually overcome this is a very, very simple method. So in our dispose controller over here, in our dispose method, we'll use something called what? Drain. So what that does is that it empties every content inside the stream. So you can see here, you cannot close the subject while items are being added from add stream. So what I'm doing here is before I close the controller, what do I want to do? I want to drain. I want to empty the stream. And this drain method over here, can you see, as observable future. So what should that mean? It means that it is asynchronous. So what I also have to do here would be to come here and do await, and we'll make the dispose method an async method. So whenever you encounter this type of error, this is what you should do. That's the beauty of not editing this stuff, so you guys would see the possible errors that could occur in this type of scenarios. So drain the movie controller and the query controller. Then what should you do? Close the stream. So I'm going to do a hot restart and see if this works. And one stuff I did not make mention of is the add error property of the stream class, which I'll be showing you guys some code bases so you guys will be able to see that. So if I click on this and I click back, can you see we don't have the error again? So it just disposes the movie search block because there is no add stream going on in the background. So guys, that's how to solve this. And this drain method is from, can you see, it's from RxDart. So that's just the basic workflow of this. And I believe this is not rocket science. So if you come across any tutorial where you see publish subject or behavior subject, at least you have an idea of what is actually going on. So if you have a scenario whereby you just need a stream controller and you're using the RxDart package, just use your publish subject. But if you need an initial value, just like we did here, use the behavior subject with the seeded constructor, and you pass in the value that you want to have as the default value. Then as for the replay subject, like I told you, whenever you subscribe, whenever you subscribe to a controller that was created with a replay subject, it gives you all the whole cached values, like all the whole previous values of the data that was inside your stream. So you might be asking, where would you use this type of information, or where would you use this type of subject? And personally, I've not actually used it anywhere, but I'm just thinking if I were to use something, probably if I'm creating a game, and probably a multiplayer game whereby different players have like currents or a high score. So when a player wins a particular game in the gaming session, he has a high score. If another player wins the next game, the high score is being added to the stream. Then if a new player joins them, probably at level 3 or something, the new player gets access to all the whole previous players' high score, kind of like a leaderboard. I don't know if this example makes any sense, but that's where I would use it. Another place where I'd also use this behavior subject would be, I just explained replay subject. So another place where I would also use this behavior subject would be for if you have a login block or something thereabout, and you want a new screen whereby when you go to that screen, you should check if the user is authenticated, if the user is logged in or not. If you just have a default publish subject or a default behavior subject, that's action to check if the user is logged in would not be executed by default. But if you use something like a behavior subject and you maybe probably is logged in controller, and you now see it with a value of what? False. So immediately it is going to show that user, it is going to take that action that user is not logged in, and it could trigger a callback or something. I don't know if this example is, you get the example, but that's just where I would use it. So by default, if you don't have a seeded value, just see this movie search screen. By default, nothing happens. But when we added the seeded value of inception, by default, when we came into this screen, we triggered what? This whole code. We triggered this code and something happened. So that's the same thing for, probably if this page is for only authenticated users, you could just set the is logged in controller to false. So whenever you come to this page, it should be false by default. Then from your stream builder, you could now trigger something else to happen, probably to redirect the person to the login page. But as you progress, you'll be able to see scenarios where you'll be using all these things. So one of the most important things I should mention is, as we've covered RxDart in this video, you might be, personally, I would not use RxDart for my Flutter applications unless my transformation logic is quite complex, whereby using the default Dart streams might be kind of like cumbersome or might not have the functionalities I need. Then I'll be using something like RxDart. So as you progress in your Flutter journey, you can use RxDart if you want to, but I'm not that type of person that just jumps into a library when it does not really do anything special for me. But if your transformations are complex, just like how we have here, you could use RxDart. If you want to have something like this seeded value and you don't want to code it from scratch using Dart streams, you could use RxDart. So RxDart comes with lots of handy functions. So you can see the observable class, you can see take, all these things, you can see the constructors, you can see the methods. All the whole methods are pretty much the same thing with just a few additions. So you just go through the docs and you see how it works for you. So the final, one thing I have to mention before I talk about the final part is the advantage of using streams. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the previous video. When you use set states, and probably when you use set states in your widget, whenever you call set states, the entire build method is being called. So that means your widgets are being rebuilt. But whenever you use stream, it is only the section that subscribes to your streams that will be rebuilt. So I think I made mention of it in some previous videos. So in these screens over here, whenever the stream changes, it is only this portion of this code that will be rebuilt. You can see the builder over here. Only this function will be rebuilt. But if this widget was stateful and we are using set state, it would be the entire widget 3 in this build method that will be built. So you can see it's just a little bit performance enhancements, a performance enhancement when you use streams in your application. Now, the aim of this tutorial series was just to demystify the whole concept of streams, the whole concept of reactive programming, the whole concept of blocks. And I hope I've done that to a reasonable level. And with the knowledge you have now, you could go into code bases and see how stuffs work. So this is one of Pawan Kumar's MTech Virals repository on GitHub. And I just want you guys to look right now. Whenever you see something like this, you should not be intimidated by what is actually going on. You can see everything is what we've simply done in this tutorial series, and you can see the abstract base block, which has the dispose method. You can see the behavior subject, the controller. This is the functions that will be called from the UI to when, as you type in the text box on changed events, these guys will be called. You know, in our application we used what? We used unsubmitted. We did not use the unchanged event. So you can see now email controller.stream.transform. We'll talk about this very shortly. And you can see one method of the observable class, combine latest. So what it does, it combines two streams together. So what this code simply does is just verifies the email and the password. So it just checks if this email is correct and the password is correct. It combines two of them here. See the thing, see the combination here, the callback. So E and P, if they return true, that means if they both have the correct data in them, return true. So this is also a stream. So if this is true, you should call the submit method. So all this type of stuff would not be intimidating for you, I believe. Then you can see the validator over here. The block extends the validator class. No, the block is built with this validator mixin. This is a mixin when you see the with keyword. So you can see over here, this is a stream transformer. I believe we've demystified the whole concept of stream in this series. So you can see this is similar to what we've done. So if the email contains, you can see contains. Contains is a method of what? The stream class. But here we are using observables. So it is a method of the observable class. So if email contains the @ symbol, what should you do? Add it to the stream. That means sync it to the stream. Else, you should do what? Sync.addError. This add error, you can also check for errors in your stream builder class. In your stream builder widget, I would leave you guys to check that out and see how it works. You can also see the password validator, which is also a stream transformer. if the password.length is greater than 4, add the password. You can see that everything is, BLoC is not as complex, and that stream is not as complicated as most people say it is. You just have to take your time and learn it step by step. You have to understand streams before you understand blocks. And this is also the tutorial from Didier Bolian's, and this is a favorite movie BLoC. You can see everything we're doing is simply implements base BLoC. Most of the things are just simply the same thing. So you don't have to be scared about or not know what to do when you see something like behaviors, subjects, and stream controller. So he used stream controller here, and this should be very, very straightforward. You can see the constructor over here. Favorite controller.stream.map. So I think you should also add the stream just to prevent, because most of all these methods are from this observable class, not from the subjects class. So you can see here, he's just mapping. Map is also an operator, which is also a transformer that goes through every item in the stream. So he just says here, if the item ID we are clicking on is equals to the movie card, then you should do what? Add its favorite. So when you click on a particular heart button, it adds it to your favorite list, and you can see everything is straightforward. Everything is straightforward, and I believe I've covered the most important parts for streams, BLoC, and RxDart. So I think we're done with this tutorial. I'm pretty much satisfied with what we've done so far, and I hope you guys are also satisfied with what you've learned, and you expect more series from this channel. We'll be building real apps in this channel. It's not just going to be about building UIs with custom clip rect and all those stuff. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.